Many people move to Spain to live a dream, but after a few months living in Spain, what they feel is isolation, frustration, and a sensation of being a permanent tourist in Spain. But that can be fixed in only a few months. Okay? My name is Jorge, and I help expats to integrate in Spain and learn the language. So, what is the problem? Why does this happen to expats? So, mainly, they spend most of their time in the English bubble. That means that they are in a community of expats, and all day they are speaking in English, and they don't have opportunities to practice the language outside of textbooks and Duolingo. And that's the second problem, learning mainly with textbooks and Duolingo. What is the solution? So the solution to this problem is to have the right mindset, have an effective learning method instead of textbooks and Duolingo, and going where the Spaniards are, so we can socialize with them. So, what is the growth mindset? So, when it comes to language, one growth mindset is the perfectionism. Like, I need perfect Spanish before I speak Spanish. That's not correct. That's impossible and that's not effective. Second, many people, when they are in Spain, many expats and tourists, they they are worried about bothering locals with their broken Spanish. We are going to see why that's the wrong mindset in a moment. So the right mindset is mainly to change, to remove this perfectionism, to drop it, and go to have interactions with the mindset of I don't try to speak perfectly. I try to communicate. And that means to understand and be understood. So the idea is understood. When you say something, they understand you. When they say something to you, you understand them. And secondly, we need to understand that the Spanish culture, the way it works when it about speaking Spanish, is that if a foreigner speaks to us, we like it. We like that they try. So trying to speak Spanish makes you likable. And also, Spaniards are very forgiving with errors because even us make errors and we understand that foreigners are going to make errors in our language. So, apart from this, what could be an effective learning method? So, usually people rely on Duolingo or textbooks and school classes, but the problem is that these methods are not realistic. So, like we are inside of a classroom or we are learning sentences that are not useful in real life, but especially we are not speaking. And very often we are not listening Spanish. So these are two big problems, okay? Not having enough practice with speaking and listening. So what we are going to do is to study less and practice more. That's an effective learning method. Language is not something to just be studied, it's something that we need to practice. When you go to learn how to swim, you don't read 6 books and then you enter in the water. You enter in the water and then you learn. So that's how we are going to approach it. We are going to focus on 80% of real life practice and a little bit of study, like at most 30 minutes per day, because the real life practice is more important. So what does that mean, real life practice? Basically, linguistic immersion and socialization. What does linguistic immersion mean? First of all, you ask yourself, what do I do in English nowadays that I could be doing in Spanish? So you incorporate to things that you are already doing the language that you are learning. In this way, you don't disrupt your schedule much, and you don't need to change many things in your life. Just the language that you are using. And in what areas would you apply this? You can be as creative as you want, okay? So I give you here many ideas, but there are infinite ideas. So you can, if you read in English, you could read in Spanish. If you watch shows in English, you could watch them in Spanish with Netflix or Lingopie. Lingopie is similar to Netflix, but they create shows specifically to learn languages. Watching YouTube videos, journaling in Spanish, writing or recording audios, which is very good because you can listen to yourself 1 week ago, 3 weeks ago, and see if you progressed, etc. You can play video games, multiplayer video games. You try to play with Spaniards. You train your algorithms for Spanish content. You listen to podcasts in Spanish when you commute, okay, etc. And you look for Spaniards in your area with Facebook, Meetup, local events. You Google, for example, what happens this week in my city, for example. And also online with Tandem and HelloTalk. HelloTalk, for example, you can join a conversation group where they talk about something like, for example, now the World Cup or something else. And then you just join and speak with native speakers. And about socialization, it's pretty simple. If you want to socialize with Spaniards, you need to go where they are. That could be online and offline, okay? So offline, I give you some ideas: bars, nightclubs, workshops, sports, especially social sports like tennis or basketball, something where you are going to be required to speak, at least with the trainer. Because if you go to the gym, you can just train alone. But it's better if you need to speak. Reading clubs, etc. Online Discord, Meetup to find events in your area, HelloTalk, as we discussed. And it's important that you think about what matches your personality. What do you like to do nowadays? And then think, can I do this in Spanish? Because it's important that you do things that you enjoy, that you like, so this process of learning is sustainable and enjoyable. So if at any moment you have the opportunity to have a conversation, I want you to know this sentence. Hola, no hablo español. Estoy aprendiendo. Super important sentence if you are a beginner in learning Spanish. Hello, I don't speak Spanish. I am learning. For example, one client I have said this sentence every time she entered in a shop. And then the seller would smile and say, in my case, I'm learning English. And then my client would offer this. ¿Quieres tomar un café? Te invito. Would you like to take a coffee? I invite you. So it's an easy way to meet people, and some of them are going to accept. Okay, so this is mostly what Aviv, one of my clients, did, apart from having video calls with me weekly, a few video calls. Here you can read his testimonial, where he explains that he barely knew in Spanish, and doing things like what we discussed, plus some other practice, he was able to have 1 hour, 2 hour, 3 hour conversations with Spanish speakers, with Spaniards, Colombians, etc. And he achieved this only after a few months. And in his case, he doesn't have perfect Spanish or advanced Spanish, but as you can see, he says that he made friends, he is able to understand better the culture and to even feel like integrated and a sense of belonging just after a few months. So if you would like to have the same results in the next 3 months, you can apply these principles or book a call with me, okay? The link is in the description and we will work together for the next 3 months. Hasta pronto.